Somebody said the car, my Discord mod, well, one of them, went on a panel with Professor Flowers, Luna Oi, Non-Compete, and another person who I don't know. What's up? Betrayal in the midst? I have to see what's going on.
Understandable, you know, and I think
what's happening. We have to learn.
I like actually thought I had said I was pro-genocide because so many people were telling me that I had said that, and I was like, oh, I must have. And I actually watched it again today because I'm going to do a follow-up video on it. I watched it again today and I did it, and I was actually super clear about it. I had like all these timestamps, me being like, I'm not pro-genocide. What I'm saying is that people who are colonized need to have their own self-determination. And
I love it was like they fall back to the euphemism. Make no mistake, by the way, she explicitly said that she was in favor of ethnic cleansing. No, none of these are Car. Car must come on later. There we go.
Good evening, everyone. I'm so happy to bring me on. Really happy you brought me on. Professor Flowers?
Vaush, I don't know how about her views, but self-determination is not a euphemism for genocide. It's a euphemism that's often used, yeah. Self-determination is often used as a euphemism by white nationalists or other ethnic cleansers as a way of indicating they want an ethno-state, which, again, she explicitly defended. We're not talking about, like, interpretation or innuendo. She did explicitly... She doesn't support ethnic cleansing, just a country's right to ethnically cleanse. True, that is technically true. She didn't say she supports ethnic cleansing, only she supports the right for some countries to do ethnic cleansing, which, if that's a meaningful difference to you, then I suppose I should point that out, yeah, but, yeah.
I don't think we've spoken before, but you make killer content, so it's a pleasure to share the stage with you.
Thanks. Well, except for that one debate that I had. I'm sorry that I put it.
Well, you did fine, and that actually...
I don't know what you're talking about.
As soon as I saw that EJ and everybody was discussing this, I'm like, oh my God, I was twitching in my chair because I had been holding it back on Twitter because I'm like, nothing gets...
My read on this, having not seen the debates, there's a tendency in a lot of these circles to read these questions in terms of case like the Haitian Revolution. Yeah, that's just a really disingenuous like thing. South Africa is a democracy. They vote. They have a government, you know? The Haitian Revolution took place with a literal slave uprising. The situation there is so incredibly fucking different, you know? The reason why ethnic cleansing would be inexcusable in South Africa is because any problems associated with colonization could be applied through policy that you vote on. But, yeah, the Haitian Revolution, that's just not the case. Though, there are things the Haitian revolutionaries did that are, like, objectively fucked up, you know? It's usually a little more complicated than just one thing is universally good or universally bad, you know? And yeah, Flowers also said... Yeah, didn't Flowers kind of suggest, like, white people can't really live in South Africa ethically? Yeah. I don't know.
Improved on Twitter, and so I just said, you know what, Car, come downstairs, play GTA, relax, let the discourse blow over. But then I'm like, hey, a panel not run by a fucking egomaniac where we can actually talk about this like adults.
You don't know me that well.
And EJ is awesome. So
where's Mel?
The issue I see, and AI already made the great point about, you know, the dissonance of people. A lot of these people, and I'm pretty active in a lot of these white...
Lance was also liking some cringe tweets about Vaush and PF. Yeah, guys, I've said it before, and I'm painting a little bit with a broad brush here, but a lot of the left is giga-cucked, okay? The left will, even if they're not bad people themselves, refuse to call out, like, obviously politically bad behavior from minority groups. I'm sorry, this happens so often, so consistently across the board. It's really, really obvious that this is a problem, okay? It's unironically bigotry of low expectations, and it's paternalistic racism and sexism, and it has to stop, okay? If people have a bad take, it doesn't matter if they're a minority, they have a bad take. It's just as simple as that. I don't think about it anything beyond that, because I'm not weird, you know? But, like, people will hear really obviously bad stuff, but then their, like, brain clunks in, and it's like, well, they are oppressed, and it's like, well, what is that? What...
Streamer spaces, a lot of them will praise the Haitian revolt.
It's also excusing ethno-nationalism under the guise of anti-colonialism. Yeah, true. People are saying that I'm associating black nationalism with genocide, but it's the opposite. Flowers is. I said I'm in favor of black nationalism and decolonization. I said I'm in favor of it broadly, and that there are tons of ways that you can do it. Flowers was the one who specifically refused to denounce the one bad way to do it, which is through ethnic cleansing, you know?
That basically set the standard for slave revolts around the world. It's scary.
we stop equating self-determination in the context of Black pride with Nazism? What? Nobody's talking about Black pride. No, stop projecting. Oh my God, we're talking about ethnic cleansing. All right, chill. Go to the timeout zone. Oh my God, nobody's talking about Black pride.
Scared North American slave owners so much that they literally created fugitive slave laws whole cloth because they were that afraid of it inspiring more revolts, right? And they praised this event. I did a whole video about it, but then they say, oh, Black separatism bad, and I'm like, wait, that was like one of the most historic.
In fairness, she did provide alternatives to genocide, although she didn't denounce genocide either. Is that like a really high bar? The denouncing genocide, is that like a real, is it unfair of me to like expect that we should be able to like, all she would have had to say is like, yeah, I don't think ethnic cleansing or like deporting a people because of their race is acceptable at all, and that would have been it. Like that would have been it. But she could never do that because she was always like, well, at the end of the day, I think that colonized people have a, et cetera, et cetera. Can't this mentality of yours be construed as colorblindness? No. Colorblindness is when you pretend to ignore race in a way that makes you blind to racial biases. So a colorblind person might not even believe in addressing systemic racism through policy because they think that kind of acknowledges race, you know? Like, I don't believe that at all. I believe that if a person has a bad take and they're Black, they still had a bad take. It's not really colorblindness.
And impactful acts of Black separatism in the Americas, perhaps of all time. And you're going to sit here and turn around and tell me that you're going to blanketly condemn one side of Black liberation. That is very complex and has a lot of layers to it.
She said she was willing to draw the line of genocide. Can you stop making me respond to chat? No, even at the end of the conversation, she defended the idea that the colonized people should be able to choose what's done. That she never backed off that. She continued to cycle back to that.
You know, but my main point that I saw with your discussion with him in particular, and I've seen it with other streamers of his ilk as well, and what I saw with St. Andrew, also spoke briefly with him on stream once, and he did the same thing. And I want to say, Suck My Opinion with what spoke to him on stream as well.
No.
And I see this really sick pattern.
Oh no!
Where the conversation always has to get routed into making us denounce things. Why are we always being pointed to denouncing things? Why is a conversation about the best ways to go about reparations, Black liberation, Black nationalism, or Black empowerment? Why does someone like Garvey have to be brought up just to paint us into a corner and say, well, you have to denounce this man's flawed views before we continue? You know.
But Flowers brought up... Didn't Flowers bring up Garvey in her first video? I didn't bring up Garvey. She brought up Garvey. I didn't bring it up.
No, you have to denounce.
And in the first video she made about me, which was done before I even knew who she was, she also implicitly defended ethnic cleansing. That was in the first video, before I even talked with her, knew it, that, like, she brought it up. I didn't bring it up.
Ghazi Kazdor, you have to denounce not fucking around coalition or whatever. You have to denounce these people before we can move on. Why is the conversation being hijacked to force us to condemn the behavior of people who have differing views on Black liberation and empowerment when we don't have that with the...
If I was talking with a white guy who was making some really weird statements about the right for people to engage in self-determination, and they explicitly cited white nationalists in a YouTube video they made about me, I think it's well within my right for me to say, hey, you don't actually support that, do you? Like, you agree you shouldn't be able to do ethnic cleansing, right? And then when they're like, well, I don't know. Like, it's not my fault they can't just be anti-ethnic cleansing. I didn't make them be like that. They're like that.
Eurocentric left-wing radicals. Okay, I don't go onto a stream and say, hey, EJ, denounce Marx's anti-Semitism right now before we continue. Denounce Proudhon's anti-Semitism. Okay, there's a lot of anti-Semites in Europe, so I could just go down the list. Denounce all of your fucking theorists' anti-Semitism before we go on, because apparently...
What if they had been saying a bunch of stuff that sounded kind of anti-Semitic and you wanted to talk about it? What?
That was very in vogue in Europe for like 400 years, right? I don't do that. So, and it would be silly if that's it would be silly if that's how I opened the conversation. So, and I think that it really does play to, I don't like labeling people as Western chauvinists, but goddamn, if the shoe isn't starting to fit.
Yeah. Ooh, it's not looking good, guys. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Also, did the conversation start with me impugning her? I thought the conversation started with me pretty calmly saying that I felt like I was misrepresented. I said that I had known the difference between black separatism and black nationalism ever since, like, the day after the debate that she cited in her first video, and then, since then, I've been consistent. And then I said that the only problem I have is sometimes people will dog whistle and support black separatism when they say they're black nationalists, and then she seemed to take issue with my denunciation of black separatism, which I don't like because I don't like ethno-states, and that's where things went. But it wasn't me, like, I didn't, like, run in there to, like, demand that she answer for her crimes, you know?
Really, really snugly. And it's just like, well, my prescriptive idea of what a revolution should look like is the only correct one. I guess I didn't offer any kind of question to the
I'm
panel.
talking about a revolution.
I tricked DJ
talking
into
about
letting me on
not
so I could
doing
rant
ethnic
on.
cleansing. Wait, hold on. If my version of a revolution is don't do ethnic cleansing, then yes, that actually is something that I think you all should adhere to. You know? Actually, yes, I will apply that standard.
Add this to what you just said. To what you said, it's funny that he wants you to have denounced Marcus Garvey, but he ain't denouncing the Democrats who started the motherfucking Klan in the first place. He ain't denouncing the fact that Biden and Bernie supported it, locking up and calling black boys. Any of that, and he wants to talk about the.
Oh my God, what do they call black boys? That was so bad that his microphone censored him. Holy shit.
Klan, but I'm like, Democrats were the Klan. What you mean? Look up your fucking history. Goddamn. But like, I'm just throwing it out there because when you said that, that's the first thing that popped in my head. But
sorry, was I pro crime bill? What? Wait, I've talked about the over policing and over criminalization of black people my entire stream. Like, you could just come on, but hey, Vaush, do you think it's fucked up how the Democrats have contributed to over policing of POC? Yeah. And did he seriously just try to hold the Democratic Party accountable for the Klan? Is this horseshoe theory? Right, like, okay. All right. It wasn't the same types of people voting for the Democrats back then, but okay. The Klan's also bad. I think I've said that before.
You know.
Yeah, and I also, real quick, I wanted to address something because this is something that a lot of people might be getting, twisted. There's this comment that's going back to something BP said, I'm wild because I'm half white. Isn't that a racist statement? Do you want to address that, BP, or anybody else on the panel? I
don't even know.
He's just playing.
Is it a racist statement? I mean, okay, reverse racism, let me start by that, was a concept that was formed by Nazis. So if you want to run with that, know who you're agreeing with. But second, I don't know, there's this thing in the black community talk about light skin crazy. And like, I also believe like
wait, am I being impugned here? I don't talk about reverse racism. I think that if a black person is racist to a white person, it's just racism. I think I've said reverse racism sometimes with air quotes, I think I've done that before, like, I think you're reverse, but I don't actually believe in it, like, conceptually. It's just,
genetics does play some role in how you think, so I'm not gonna front.
Wait, hold on.
And like, I also believe like genetics does play in some role in how you think, so I'm not gonna front. But
wait.
So if you want to run with that, know who you're agreeing with. But second, I don't know, there's this thing in the black community talk about light skin crazy. And like, I also believe like genetics does play in some role in how you think, so I'm not gonna front.
He's saying the genetic differences between light skin and dark skin black people mean they think differently. Can we? Okay, wow. Oh, well, I guess we're just affirming the race realist arguments. I don't think different races of people think differently, genetically. This is our panel where we're impugning me for being racist. Okay.
But yeah, I was mainly playing. But the reality of it is like, I don't think you can really be racist against the white people. I think they hold the power, but also pointing out how my European side has a trend of being fucked up and a history of being ancestry from generation being fucked up, and then playing on that as a joke, I don't think it's racist. I just don't think that's really a thing because it's not ahistorical. Like, I'm gonna be 100, it's not ahistorical. Like, it's not like white folks didn't do that. And me playing on that fact that I'm half white, being, I don't know, man. I don't know how like you could take that and take it to racism. And I think also you gotta look at it as like for what it is. It's like, okay.
I think you can make funny jokes about this, but something tells me that this is basically like literally like mixed race people are tainted by their European ancestry. Isn't that kind of what he's saying? Like, you could make jokes about it. I think you can make funny jokes about it that I wouldn't have a problem with, but it seems like that might be like a strong underlying belief. You know what I mean? Yeah, but he's mostly playing. Yeah, he's mostly playing. Well, yeah.
Hey, white people have done like foul shit over and over again. So if I joke about my white side who has done foul shit over and over again, like even in my family, right? And when I joke about that, then I don't think it's racism. It's my own part of my own. I mean, are you saying I'm internalized racist against my white side? I mean, I don't know. I don't know how like that's working. I don't know if that really works that way. But I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of tipsy right now, so I'm kind of being sloppy with it. But
oh shit!
Yeah,
the problem is
like-
that I'm not tipsy. Damn.
you gotta get on the level, Car. You gotta get.
I don't know, it just sounds like self-deprecating humor. I mean, after saying that you think different races genetically think different, and then talking about how you're tainted by your white half because your white half has done bad things. I don't know. Maybe I just have a really, it's just, I don't know. It could just be a big meme. This guy was making weird posts about you on Insta. Oh, shit. Was I the victim of racism?
Get on level, you know.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
I think,
And, like,
I think
I
the
guess,
reverse
like-
racism thing is pretty important. So does anybody else have any, like, that ties into this a lot, I think.
Yeah, that was
I
just
mean,
bullshit. I think.
It
Okay, actually, sorry. Go ahead, Al.
oh, I was just gonna say that, like, I mean, I don't think it's like necessarily a genetic thing. I don't think people are essentially anyway.
Oh,
but the
thank
thing
God.
is that
Oh, thank God, Christ Almighty, Jesus Christ, Lord, please, thank you for pointing out there's something fucked up about saying different races of people think differently genetically. Thank you so much, AI, or Al, I don't know which, because it could be either, but thank you. Thank you, AI, machine spirit. Blessed be the Omnissiah.
there's a historical inertia to these conversations, right? So if your way of life, and for the way of life for most Americans, Canadians, Australians, New Zealanders, white South Africans, so on and so forth, and Europeans in the continent, on their continent as well, relies upon the subjugation of people across the planet who are not European, then it's going to be something that's transmitted culturally to be oppressive towards said people. I mean,
Okay, I agree with that.
me and EJ talked a little bit about this before stream, and with Luna as well, but even in the combating of climate change, somebody like Vaush a year ago said Vaush himself, he made a video with a PhD candidate where they talk about advanced countries paying off the developing world so that they can remain complacent while the advanced countries come up with technology to mitigate climate change. Then the developing countries can advance. That's climate colonialism. And
Wait, hold on. No, wait, my argument was the opposite. My argument was climate reparations. I was saying that we should pay a fuck ton of money to sponsor the development of green energy in the developing world because we fucked them over economically and it's hurting the whole planet now. I was saying the opposite, that we should be giving them industry and investment and everything with no strings attached. I guess as long as they spent it on green energy. It's the opposite. They're colonizing my wallet. I don't know. Yeah, no. God.
if you're somebody who even claims, like, the idea and the goal is end climate change or fix this problem, even when they have a goal that is supposedly supposed to be for our side on the left, they are employing tactics that are colonialist because that is the history that we grow up with in this country. And if you're a white person, then those are your ancestors and how they.
It's like no one bothers to understand your views. Dude, it's so blackpilling. Why? No matter how hard I try, it feels like I never actually get criticized for things I actually believe. Why do you think people misunderstand your points so often? It's because they hear bad shit about me beforehand, so when they finally do encounter my points, they encounter the worst versions of it that have played a telephone game through a dozen people reciting the worst things I've ever done. And eventually the thing they hear has nothing to do with the thing I said. You know?
did things. So even if it's not something inherent to these people, it is something that is transmitted generationally. And it seems that people forget that the global south is the one supplying them with the copper and the zinc and the coltan and all the materials that they need to even create these technologies. So, I mean, and to go into the idea of like anti-white racism, I just don't subscribe to that, because we don't really have any power to bring against white people. And we don't really make fun of them for physical characteristics.
Okay, hold on. I've been on Twitter. Yeah, you do. That does happen. I'm not saying that's systemic racism. I'm not saying it's ending my life. I'm just saying, you know, it's been known to happen. Yeah, you got to own that, okay?
We don't have a tendency to do that. Some people do, but it's kind of rare. Most of the time, people make fun of white people for their behaviors, like Professor Flowers brought up in that video with that hilarious whip and nene thing. I can't.
So, you know, I think you played a really good point there, and I came in a little late to the conversation, but I think that the point to take from this, you know, setting the record straight on Black nationalism, I'd like to set the record straight on Black separatism, because I don't, a lot of people seem to get it wrong in online spaces. The best way, I think, to visualize it for anyone listening, separatism is basically self-determination and creating as much space away from your oppressors as possible, allowing you to act upon that self-determination. If that creating space from oppressors requires violence, then it requires violence. It doesn't have to, though. The problem is that historically, outside of the people of Haiti, when Black Americans in the diaspora have attempted to peacefully create that space away from their oppressors, they were met with violence.
God, the problem is this language is so loaded with euphemism that you could be defending everything from, like, peacefully leaving a country to go move to another one, or a race war. The language that's being used here could blanket defend, like, anything. What do you mean, get away from your oppressors with violence? And what level of oppression? What about Black people in America today? Would Black people in America today have the right to engage in a violent revolution to secede, like, with a state or something? Like, I know that's impractical, but, like, is that what we're morally legitimizing? And what do you mean, get away from? Are you going to form a new country? Are you going to have borders and police to guard those borders? Are you going to deny people of the race you consider oppressive entry into your borders? It's so cloaked with euphemism. Why do you always take it to extremes? Witchblade, I am so patient with you people. Okay, with the bans, everyone. Why have I spent the past 2.5 years arguing against Nazis only to find my audience is incapable of understanding the danger of this language? We're literally, like, the language used literally describes racial separatism and violence used to achieve it, but in vague enough terms that it can encompass a lot of stuff. Like, the whole difficulty with dealing with neo-Nazis is that they cloak their intentions in language designed to inoculate, distract, mislead. And even though Black separatists are not literally neo-Nazis, the fact remains that obfuscating language has the ability to null and numb people's abilities to recognize harmful political action. That's why I take issue with the ambiguity of the sentence, or the language that's being used here. Because it's never really direct, is it? Was Flowers direct? It's always lofty. I think that oppressed or colonized people should have the right to self-determination. Well, okay, but what do you mean? Give me a policy. How does this look, you know? But they don't answer because that would look really bad. So are you saying you just erred on the side of a crypto-Nazi in the debate you just left? What? What does this have to do with siding with them? What? All right, you're getting bit. Yeah, okay. Why all the people who come in chat? I try to give you fair space, but you always end up being fucking insane. Jesus Christ. I try not to go full 1984. I try. Like, God. All right.
They were met with unkind violence that was not even reciprocated, and they didn't retaliate, but they were met with violence that wasn't warranted. You talk about Rosewood, Tulsa. You can talk about MOVE in Philadelphia. MOVE was a Black separatist movement, and the cops bombed it. And they
MOVE in Philadelphia. I don't know about that one. So I don't know about that one. I think I've heard of it, but I don't. Move, originally the Christian Movement for Life. Imagine being Christian. Is a communal organization advocating for nature laws and natural living, founded in 1972. Lived in a communal setting in West Philadelphia, abiding by the philosophies of anarcho-primitivism. Oh, shit! And Prim Gang, hold up. The group combined revolutionary ideology, similar to that of the Black Panthers, with work for animal rights. Sick. MOVE is particularly known for 2 major conflicts with the Philadelphia Police Department. In 1978, a standoff resulted. 9 members. Okay, gotcha. 9 members were convicted of killing the officer and received prison sentences. We moved townhouse. Police helicopter dropped 2 bombs. Well, that's a strategy. Resulting fire killed 6 MOVE members and 5 of their children. Destroyed 65 houses in the neighborhood. The police bombing was strongly condemned. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe we think that's a little bad. Possibly. They flattened 65 houses in the neighborhood. Just like, God. It's like that. Do you guys remember that scene from, The Dark Knight Returns? The Frank Miller comic? Where the police just occasionally, like, drop bombs on condemned buildings? And that was supposed to be a future dystopia. MOVE bombing. I think I've heard of this before. Yeah, the MOVE bombing. Jesus Christ. Jesus fuck. Looks like fucking Afghanistan. Looks like Baghdad. Jesus Christ. I'm guessing there was like a stand-up? They probably didn't just bomb for funsies. There was probably like a stand-up and they wanted to avenge the cops that had died, so they bombed the thing. That's not an excuse or anything, just... Or was it totally, completely unprompted? There was an armed standoff with the police, yeah. MOVE members fired back, 90-minute gunfight ensued, in which one officer was bruised in the back by gunfire. What? Read chat, you dumb fuck. Cars here. Okay, Cars here. Hold on, 1 second, I'm reading. Just a sec, Jesus. God, fuck. Oh my God. There was complaint to the city for years about trash around their building, confrontation with neighbors, bullhorn announcements, sometimes playing civil after the brawl. They obtained arrest warrants, charging 4 MOVE occupants with crimes including parole violations, contempt of court, illegal possession of firearms, making terrorist threats. Seems likely, given some of the factors present here. They got classified as a terrorist organization. Residents prior to their action. Watch the YouTube video on the bombing. Holy shit, chill, one thing at a time. 500 police officers arrived in force. What the fuck? Why bomb it? Why not just reduce the building to ash through bullets? Why not simply crush the building with the combined weight of all of the bullets that you fire at it? Like, what? 500? Christ. Water and electricity were shut off. This is all just because they had fucking warrants? Jesus fuck. They used over 10k rounds, Vaush. They tried. Should have tried 20,000. They should have simply debated them out of the building. True. Why does nobody ever think of stuff like that? Too bad they don't teach the police how to debate. You know why? Because the police don't watch the Vaush channel. If they'd been Vaushites back in the day, if I remember they were separatists, I'm not getting much of a read on their, like, broader behavior. What's up? I know. All right. Okay. He's pretty level-headed. All right, Car. You can talk. That's okay. That's fine. Howdy.
Good evening.
Weren't we on a panel together a second ago?
You know, I just saw you not too long ago. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Okay, what's up? Why the white chauvinism stuff?
I'll be charitable, and maybe I can ask you instead to...
It's okay if you were meaner in the panel than you would be to me in talking. There's different contexts to the... I'm just saying, I'm not like expecting you to defend the words said there. Just like generally, like, what are your thoughts?
Look, someone in your chat raised a great question. They're like, why do you mod for someone who you think is a Western chauvinist? And I said, you know, because I still like the content and I think people can grow. That's something you've said too. So, look, the vibe I get from your interaction on the discourse is that, and not just Black issues, but on a number of things, is that you carry a very specific ideal scenario for how we move forward and how we take things left. And that comes off a lot in your interaction and in your rhetoric. And, you know, I'm not trying to be mean when I say that. And I probably, going back, I was pretty wishy-washy when I said it. And honestly, I'd probably retract that statement. I think Western chauvinist is a bit harsh, but I don't know how I would phrase it. Maybe you're more Americentric or Eurocentric leanings. You know, listen, I talk enough about white people. I didn't want to go for that easy one. You know, because it doesn't necessarily have to be white. There's plenty of people of color who espouse a similar Americentric view towards politics.
So there are many black
look at Larry
white
Elder.
boys.
There aren't many black white boys. No, I haven't met too many black white boys. Here's what I'll ask you instead, because I saw your chat saying that I let them down with some of my points in the panel. So I would ask you, if you don't mind, Evan, being charitable with me and telling me what of my points you saw were either a bit sus or cringe, or what you think is just bad.
Well,
I saw some questions about the black separatism thing.
Yeah, I didn't get too far in, so I don't know if I had an opportunity to rack up many. But I guess the general the general problem that I have is that I just don't really think that my handling of this situation or my general conversations along these lines are really that unreasonable. It's true I do have like some ideas on how I think revolutionary or progressive movement should be handled, but I don't think it's wrong to have prescriptive judgments on those things, especially when the thing that I get hung up on is like ethnic cleansing, which I feel like is a really low bar to cross. I don't think I was like mean or unreasonable to her. I think I was charitable to Professor Flowers. I listened to the arguments that she had, but she demonstrated this persistent unwillingness to explicitly say, yeah, I don't think it's acceptable to do genocide or ethnic cleansing or whatever, which is really weird to me because when we see that behavior from people on the right, we know what they're doing. They're signaling to their base that they're not leaving that off the table. It's really obviously an indication from them that they're circumnavigating the broader topic. I don't think I pigeonholed her. I mean, I tried asking her like explicitly, and she would just not move away from the idea that colonized people have a right to do whatever to be rid of their colonizers. But then she essentialized colonizer to a race, and I don't think that's appropriate either. A lot of this stuff, I mean, it really just comes off to me as like reactionary tendencies, but for them. Reactionary tendencies, but for the oppressed group instead of the oppressor, you know?
Well, you know, I don't know if I came off as wholeheartedly agreeing with anyone on the panel entirely or all of their points, but I can tell you now to set the record straight, which is why I pinged you for a conversation, not a debate, a conversation, because it turns out talking to you in person is a little bit better than watching you. It's and we can share a lot of jokes about Rob. That guy is a fucking 240 Bravo of talking points, and I had to start interrupting him just because he would go for 5 minutes at a time.
I fucking love that guy.
He's a horrible spectacle. It's something. He is something. So here's the thing. I can unequivocally say I don't want to ethnically cleanse people. I don't want to genocide people. I don't think that's necessary. And it's bad. So there you go. Hopefully your audience heard that. Don't want to genocide, don't want to ethnically cleanse. I don't even necessarily think we have to go as far as Haiti did back during the revolt. While sometimes I strongly feel like when I'm talking to Rob that I should just take to the streets with my machete, I don't think that's actually all that effective this day and age. So here's what I want. And maybe it's better if I just reassert my position and put the nuance in there so people don't think I'm vague posting. When I say create distance between your oppressors, I don't mean move or deport the oppressors. I mean take the opportunity, if given, to get away from the oppressors. Does that mean leaving willfully? Maybe. Does that mean trying to create enclaves and communes within a settler colony state? Maybe. That could be what it is. In the case of move, that's what they were trying to do. And part of what led to the unfortunate interaction with that police officer who died was the cops fucking with them nonstop in Philadelphia. And in response to an officer initiating a altercation with them and dying, they burnt down a block of homes and killed 8 children. So, you know, any time that Black people in their efforts for Black power, Black liberation have tried what one could call peaceful, non-exclusionary means of Black separatism, it's been met with violence. It has no historical precedent for palingetic ethno-nationalism, which is what you're saying, it dog whistles too. In terms of being specific about the things that I would like to see, I would like to see the Homestead Act restored and given to Black residents at the same rates that it was given to white residents back when it was first initiated. 10% of the land in the United States was given to people functionally for free due to the Homestead Act. I want to see that be done for Black people to allow them to build good communities with generational wealth, allowing them to provide for the future success of their families. This is a hard, concrete policy that I'd want to see. There's no exclusion there. There's no violence there or white genocide. And Lord knows, when I joined your channel, you were a lot edgier. You used to make Mayo-side jokes all the time. Why'd you stop?
Because I didn't realize there were people sounding along with me who weren't joking. I don't I mean it. Look, I don't think I'm ever going to be killed by some Black Revolutionary Army. I'm not talking about myself as though I'm under threat. It just, I think there's a pretty big difference between joking about Mayo-side with people who are joking about Mayo-side and joking about Mayo-side with people who maybe kind of really actually kind of do sort of fucking hate white people. It just bothers me. Even if it never leads to an inch of harm done to me, it still bothers me. And
here's what I'll tell you.
I just want to say, with regards to...
go ahead.
Yeah, everything that you said, I agree with. I think it's delightful. I think I'm a huge fan of what is, I guess, Black nationalism in the traditional sense, which is the idea that you should take advantage of whatever systems you can to try to form political, social, economic blocks, to not fully integrate and assimilate, but rather to distinguish yourself, to find ways to excise yourself from the drain of repeated cyclical systemic oppression. So I'm totally in favor of that stuff. The issue that I have is that nobody else seems to think that way. Whenever I see discourse about me on this, people talk about me like my positions on race are equivalent to like Donald Trump's or like Ted Cruz's or something. That I'm at best completely colorblind and therefore neoliberal, or at worst that I actively infest the left to destroy people's interests in Black nationalist projects. I feel like for the most part, my positions are pretty okay. Maybe not perfect, but they're okay. I just take issue with people who take really good ideas, like Black nationalism or land back, and then because they're edgy little fucking always online dipshits, they turn it into a way of expressing their antagonism against white people. Land back is great, and if you talk to tribal leaders, they'll tell you some really sensible stuff. But go on Twitter and ask your average lefty what their opinions are.
You don't go on Twitter for good opinions, Vaush. You know that.
I do, but then you'll hear crazy shit.
Okay,
you'll like, yeah, I think that
Nasheed is on Twitter.
All America should
Jesse
be given
Lee
back.
Peterson is on Twitter. Okay,
that's true, but it's
Twitter's a shithole.
But it's not about the individuals. It's about the broader effect on the community, and it is definitely something I've noticed that. At its best, the left is turning a blind eye towards some really prominent reactionary tendencies within its midst, just because the reactionary tendencies are being directed against privileged people. And I brought this up, and this is the last thing I say, I know we're rambling, but the reason why this really bugs me is because we should have already learned our lesson about this. Man-hating feminism, quote unquote, has been popular for a long time, but TERFs haven't reached the public stage until the past couple of years. And what a lot of lefties thought was just innocent joking around about the inherent biological violence ascribed to men and how they're all, violent and aggressive and et cetera, they didn't realize there was actual bigotry underlying this until it turns out, oh, wow, they think trans women also fit in that group. We've already seen how this goes. Hate against the oppressor is absolutely capable of turning as pernicious as hate against the oppressed. Maybe not as immediately harmful, but in terms of like the ideology.
I don't think while I agree to some extent with the TERF example, I think we can't ignore the existing power structures that go into even like the TERF movement, because the TERF movement's born of white feminism. It is overwhelmingly white. Okay, there's a reason the UK is called TERF Island, right? It is an overwhelmingly white movement. So here's what I will say to you about movements that maybe ignore reactionary elements within the movement. Yeah, there's going to be reactionary people within the movements. For anyone watching who still doesn't know, and any of my fans that came over, also in the interest of full disclosure, to let you know perhaps any conflict of interest, I'm a moderator on Vaush's Discord. All right. I've seen some of the just bizarro ideologies that come through these spaces, both left and right. And yeah, I think anarchism is pretty based. But then you get into weird anarcho-capitalism. That's not very based, nor is it anarchism, but people believe in it wholeheartedly. And there's some very, very big names making content promoting anarcho-capitalism. There's Strasserites in 2021. There's Hoppians and other kinds of esoteric fascists. Shit that I thought existed in fantasy, but people actually live that way. It's fucking wild. So what I'll cap that off by saying is that you are you've I hope have read a fair amount of theory. You're operating off of a decent history of European theory. The Black diaspora, on the other hand, comparatively is very young in its revolutionary movements. It really is. Okay, so are there going to be some people who unironically say, yeah, kill the Mayo monkeys? Yeah, there probably are. Are there, I miss you making force fem jokes too. Were there people who unironically were saying, yes, force fem Nazis? Probably. But I look at the legitimacy of the movement, what legitimacy behind those people actually exists. And while there's a few people out there who have some audience with very reactionary views, they are not ever indicative of the whole movement. And the best way to make sure that those people don't gain power is to take steps to have Black leaders lead the discussion on Black liberation. That's my thought. I don't think you're the worst person, even on the left, talking about these issues. I really don't. There's plenty of people, white guys on the left, who trip over their own dicks whenever they talk about Black issues. I think sometimes you stumble on some of the points, and usually it's a facepalm moment for me. I'm like, fucking A, Vaush, who did you ask before you did this? But at the end of the day, you've made some bad takes on Twitter. So have I. And but you're not the worst. I mean, I'm subscribed to Peter Coffin on Twitter. I follow Peter Coffin on Twitter, and that's a whirlwind. That's a roller coaster ride. I don't know if you ever read Peter's tweets. So again, you understand there's going to be some people with faulty views.
Yeah, I have a few problems with this.
They don't have the power structures, to make it an issue.
I have a few problems with this.
Okay, yeah, lay it on me.
First of all, I don't really go out of my way to make this like a huge subject that I overemphasize the importance of. For the most part, I just cover conservatives. The problem is that somebody made a video on me, and then I talked to her, and she can't denounce ethnic cleansing. I mean, that seems like pretty weird to me. Like, I don't think like I'm going out of my way to over-exaggerate the harm. The issue then is that the left falls in with her. The only people online who support my interpretation of that debate are in my community. Outside of that, the entire Twitter sphere is buzzing with an affirmation of everything that I think is problematic about this type of discourse. I don't really care if it's not structurally possible for a Black revolution to take my head or whatever. If there are racists or anti-Semites or ethnic cleanse defenders or whatever within the left, I think it's important for us to excise them. We do the same, or I should say we should do the same with tankies. There are a ton of people on the left who are like overtly genocide deniers, like very forwardly not socialist. But a lot of lefties turn the other way because many of those people are POC, which means that their incredibly bad opinions get framed as, their way of addressing these issues, and people who call them out for it, if they're white, get called white chauvinist or white colonialists, or people who ascribe Western values to, well, if my Western value is don't do ethnic cleansing or genocide, then I'm okay being a chauvinist with it, because I believe very strongly in those values. I don't think it's acceptable for us to look past this stuff just because it's not representative of the majority, and I think we should certainly be afraid of the fact that people on the left are afraid to talk about it. It's like bigotry of low expectations, like bad takes by minorities get like flown under because the white boys who tend to be the loudest voices on the left are scared of being accused of being racist for calling it out, which, hey, is exactly what happens to me. I'm getting called a racist right now in an argument that I had where I affirmed my belief in the validity of black nationalism and argued against racial essentialism. But it doesn't matter. For a lot of them, just disagreeing with a black woman is enough to cement your invalidity if you're a white guy. Again, I don't want to pretend this is some massive systemic issue. This isn't like the end of the world. I'm doing very fine. But it's clearly bad. And also, it kind of delegitimizes their movements, too. How does it make black nationalists look that they're uncritically associated with people who conflate black nationalism with ethnic cleansing? That probably doesn't do very much good to the people who are legitimately positing those ideas, you know?
It's not uncritically. There's for all of those people who espouse those reactionary views, there are most certainly people within the realm or the audiences, the people who would be in that demographic that are critical of them. Do they have the same loudness or platforms to make enough noise to drown them out or attack them critically? Not always, unfortunately. I wish it were different that way. I wish that the historic conditions that led to us getting to this point would have allowed for the most level-headed and goals-oriented black radicals to lead the discussion. I really do. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. So what I want it to be known is that I didn't agree with everything said on the panel. I agreed with some of it. I had a lot of fun discussing things. I as I said at the beginning, perhaps I spoke at a turn calling you a Western chauvinist. You know, thinking back, I don't think that. What was I trying to say here? Sorry, ADHD. I lose it sometimes.
No, I'm not too offended about that. It's just I don't see the issue in calling out bad ideas. There aren't that many neo-Nazis in America either, but nobody gets mad at me. Well, Nazis get mad at me. Most people don't get mad at me when I like take time pulling apart their arguments. I think it's possible for these to be like good examples to tear apart. I don't think that you should refrain from attacking bad ideas just because they don't pose like much of an immediate threat, which to be fair, neo-Nazis don't. Broader like fascist QAnon type, sure, but actual overt neo-Nazis, not so much. Hold on one second. What? Thank you. Sorry. You know? And yeah, and after Flowers talks with me, she goes in with Mel, and Mel is like a racist.
I can't speak to Mel. I don't know
denier.
Mel's content. I don't. You can tell me. I don't know Mel's content. I'm not really familiar. I've heard some bad things, and I don't know. If I watched Mel, I probably wouldn't be too big of a fan, from what I'm hearing. But I learned to not completely judge content creators by what everyone says. You know, if everyone judged your content by what people on Twitter say about you and whatnot. So, what I'll say, and I won't take up too much of your time. Because you know, I don't want your chat to think I'm sus or anything like that. My ideal goal ultimately would be your ideal goal, which is race abolition. So the thing that I lead with is that, yeah, race is a social construct, but it's one that some groups of people have been forced into at the barrel of a gun or at the tip of a sword for a very long time. So what I want is restorative justice. Right. And I think that, are there going to be missteps along the way to that? Absolutely. Just like right now, you operate in this leftist space and you have to sit and argue about what's happening to the Uyghurs with other white leftists, something that should be fucking obvious. Right. But that's an argument you've literally had to have. I don't know who you talked to. I think was it I don't know, Jason Unruh or something, or Mike from PA. Yeah, something like that. You've had to argue
calling out those ideas, right? I mean, keep in mind,
there's nothing wrong with that.
TERFs are an example of a progressive movement going awry. TERFs are from the second wave feminist movement. I'm a man, you know? If I have those arguments, if I argue with the TERF, I'm doing basically the same thing. I'm taking a person who is a bad representative of a politically progressive ideology, and I'm tearing them apart. But I think it's good. I don't know. I wish I feel like the Uyghur genocide deniers and the black separatists, you know what I mean, the ethno-state types, of which there are a few.
Reactionary black separatists or what have you.
They should just be like laughing stocks on the left. I don't know, but they never are.
I mean, a lot of them are. I really think maybe you haven't delved as deep into at least some left-leaning black spaces see how much they laugh at people like Tariq Nasheed, or laugh at people like the NOI, or laugh at people like fucking Umar Johnson and things like that.
Here's my hot take. I actually don't think Tariq Nasheed would be despised by the left if it weren't for the homophobia. I actually think that if he continued being as virulently racist as he is now, he would not be canceled for it at all. It's the homophobia that makes him the enemy of the left. Because I don't think white people feel comfortable attacking him over his racism towards white people. And honestly, judging from the comment section, there are a lot of black people who seem to agree with his positions on mixed race children, for example. You can take a look at which families and which households support interracial marriage, and it turns out there are a lot of black people in this country who don't. So I like, it's a problem, but I feel like it's a problem which is exacerbated by our unwillingness to address it frankly, not as some inter-black community issue that needs to be discussed by black people with black people, but as a general, obviously wrong thing we should all have fun pointing at and laughing. It seems, I mean, isn't that more fun and fair, really, since we're all opposed to those ideas?
Yeah. You know, it would be fair, and ultimately that's what I would like to see. And I'm not even speaking for myself at this point, because, like I said, at the end of the day, aren't you supposed to be preparing for a charity stream?
Don't call me out. Yes, I am.
Wait, gosh, like I work for you for free. I have to watch out for your mental health.
Yeah. I do. Well, okay. Well, look, I do appreciate you coming on. I don't.
Thank you for having me on. It's been a while, and people have come up to me several times and said, "Oh, you should talk to Vaush." And I'm like, I feel like you're expecting too much, because I'm really not a confrontational person. I hope I'm not really speaking to you, though. I'm speaking to your audience, speaking past you, basically. Give a chance, is what I would say, to let some black voices speak on restorative justice and black liberation, right? That's what I would say to you and your audience, and understand that, yes, there are some people who espouse reactionary views, and yes, there are some black people who support them, and yes, there are some people who maybe play kid gloves with some of those reactionary views, right?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to give them the space to speak.
At the same time, that exists with all movements. So I don't think, I'm not going to tell you to not talk about it. I think it could be important to point out these views where they are. There's really not a right answer on how to do it without eliciting the hate mob, other than, you know, use your platform to amplify a black voice to do that criticism of the reactionary elements within the movement. And that doesn't sound fair to say on your channel, take a backseat to someone else's voice. But that's the best thing I could offer. I know it's not always fair, and sadly, though, it's been a brutally unfair system for Black Americans for a very long time. And there's a reason, as you know, talking to white nationalists, that reactionaries gain audiences. They speak to hurt, they speak to pain, they speak to alienation. So Black reactionaries do the same thing. And the best thing that we can do is also speak to that hurt, alienation, and trauma, but pointing them in the right direction. Did you have anything else to say to me? I won't keep you the rest of the night, sir.
No, I mean, I agree that these issues are difficult and have to be discussed, and that we should listen to people who have good ideas on the matter. I mean, I won't like bring a black guy on to speak for me, because it feels kind of tokeny. Like Professor Flowers even accused me of that in her first video. Like, I only brought another black person on to agree with me because the fact of the matter is,
black person was she referencing? I didn't watch all of her video when it got to the shitty parts.
Intellectual media, I think she's nice.
Intellectual's nice.
Intellectual.
Yeah, I like her.
Yeah, she's cool. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. I can never really get into the like elevate one voice over others because of their race thing, because it seems like there's so often a really bad correlation between people's identity and people's takes on shit, you know? I don't know. If I brought someone on but I disagreed with them, I just end up arguing with them. So I don't know if there's much of a benefit to that, really, like regardless of their race. But there are plenty of like, I mean, I don't think that like this is like a us versus them type situation. I really think that like 90% of the problem here is just people being like fundamentally uncharitable towards the idea that like white people can levy criticisms at movements that aren't mostly made up of white people. I don't fucking know. We'll get over it. I just don't want when conservatives accuse me of being part of a white hating movement, I don't want to lie when I say that it's not. So that's my goal.
No, you should be part of a white hating movement. Join the dark side.
All right. Okay. Go. I gotta go to sleep. Be
Games,
gone.
man. Have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good night. It really is a lose-lose situation, huh? You know? If I talk on my own, I'm a white boy, but if I bring a black person on, I'm tokenizing them to speak in my stead, you know? But if I bring a black person on who disagrees with me, then yeah, I don't know. Oh, hello. We're not changing a goddamn thing. Never forget. Never forget, my friends. We're going to continue calling out all the bad takes. We're going to continue being the dark knight of the left, okay? What are we? The hero they need, but not the one they deserve, okay? We're going to dab all over their goddamn bad takes. They're mad that I'm white. I'll get whiter. I'll bleach my skin. I'll look like fucking MJ sitting here, okay? I'll have to turn my ISO and my camera way down so I don't blind all of you with the destructive glare of my shiny skin, okay? Never forget. Turn Irish? Yeah. I'll be the Christ allegory of the left. They crucify me, for I am white. God. You know what I've always wanted? You know what I've always wanted more than like anything else? I think about this sometimes. I so desperately wish that I could go on a really big tirade about the black separatists and all the cucks on the left who ignore the fact that there are a lot of people among their ranks who unironically dislike white people, and I'd go on a big rant, you know, like the Joker. And then, maybe because of how the stream was scheduled or something, somebody comes on to debate me, and they're like a neo-Nazi or a white nationalist or just a conservative. And they're like, ha, so we agree. The left is full of anti-white types. And then I just tear the fuck into them. That's what I want more than anything else. I want them to briefly feel that glimmer, that brief connection, you know, before it's snatched away from them. You know? That's the goal. That's the dream. That sounds like a fantasy. God, doesn't it? Absolutely. Imagine the backlash if you had done the brownie points bit. Yeah. Oh, God.